Welcome to our third EEA, what we used to call Summit, but we've changed the name to Symposium, and I'll let Marc talk to you a little bit more about that when he comes to the stage. But this is our third event, and this marks our third birthday, actually. It's 3 years since our inception. And throughout these 3 years, this event has been hosted for us time and time again by Al Karim of the 4C Group. So everybody, please join me giving a huge round of applause as a thank you to Al Karim. So in our last two gatherings, we focused on ESG's shift from voluntary to mandatory, from aspiration to regulation. Now we focus on action. Because ESG isn't anymore about whether we should or even what we should be doing. It's much more about how we embed ESG into our investment and business decisions in order to create short-term and long-term value. And that's why at the EEA we have invested in building a forum to be the leading forum where ESG thinking and thought leadership is happening. And we're delighted because throughout our third 3-year journey, we have actually been joined by a huge number of thought leaders. So just before we start, I want to say thank you to some of those thought leaders, particularly those who've been supporting this event. So this list includes some of the people who you'll be hearing from today. Corey from the IFRS ISSB, Sven from CREM, JLL, Rekka is here. We have Verdant by Copeland, Beyond Carbon Energy, City Air Technologies, Studio Moren, Drax, Optimized Energy, Omniview, D2O, and of course, the King's Business School. And our partnership with the King's Business School is absolutely fundamental, because ultimately, if we are to make decisions which now factor in non-financial as much as and with the greatest precision as we do apply to financial decisions, then we need to get skilled up. We need to be educated. We need to have the right training to be able to start making those decisions in the best interests of our investment and our businesses and, of course, our communities. And with King's, we have developed an ESG executive education program, and we have invested in that together with King's. And today, you are all very fortunate, as are we, because we actually have 4 professors from the King's Business School, each one of whom will be leading one of the discussion topics that we're going to actually participate in today. So we're very, very fortunate and very grateful to King's. And we also have, as those of you who have been here last year, we also have Dr. Marc Lepere, who is actually chairing the entire conversation for us. So without any further ado, I'd like you to join me in giving a huge round of applause and a welcome to Dr. Marc Lepere.
Thank you, Ufi. I always like to start at the end. I think I did this last year as well. So in case I forget to say it at the end, Ufi, congratulations. I know it's going to be great. Look at all these people. It's wonderful. Everyone's really welcome. Thank you to the hotel. And in case I forget, I've said it now. So thank you very much, Ufi, and well done. Right. So you're very pleased to be with King's. King's is hugely pleased to be with the EEA. I mean, I think we talked about this a bit last year, how this is a perfect industry in terms of a laboratory for ESG, sustainable business, purposeful, whatever we want to call it. Because we've got lots and lots of buildings of all different types, full of lots and lots of people eating and drinking a lot, some of whom work there and some of whom are paying to be there. Okay, it's perfect. It's got water problems, carbon problems, DE&I issues, salary issues, all kinds of issues. It's ideal for ESG. Right, if you think about it that way. So I think it's a great place to do things, as Ufi's saying, and I think we can move to action. Last year, if you remember, we made this event very informal. It was a workshop. It was part of a series of workshops that we put on in order to design the executive course. This year, we've made it a symposium, which is a fancy academic word for we're all going to learn together. We know a bit more at King's, maybe about certain areas than some of you. I guarantee many of you know a lot more about other areas than we do. So as we said last year, it's about learning together. It's actually about unlearning together and learning new things, okay? But we have to do that together and we can help each other. So the first thing I'd like to do by way of you helping us is Art, if we could. Art has this very clever thing called a Mentimeter. So if you can use the QR code or this, and we're going to use it throughout the day for various interactive stuff. If you want to ask questions, you do it through this, okay, as opposed to hands up and all that stuff. So take the QR code, and then we'll ask the first question. I think once everybody's got that, and then we'll ask the first question, which essentially is to ask you to give us your top-of-mind thoughts when you think of ESG. And we'll do this again at the end and just see if we've had any effect throughout the day, okay? But make sure everyone's got that. Whilst you're doing that, again, life is too short. We need to get on with stuff. So we're not going to do endless titles. Some of you have titles that are so long, we'd be here the whole day just doing the titles. So we're not going to bother with that. We're all important. We're all good at what we do. We all have influence, and we really do. So we're just going to use first names and just be very informal about it, if that's okay. Art will put up people's titles up here, and you can Google everybody as to your heart's content. We can look at LinkedIn. They're all in the program anyway, okay? So if you want contacts and all that, it's all up there. But we're going to be informal today. Is everyone cool with this so far? Okay, can we go to the first question then, Art? Please, thank you. So literally, what are the first three things that come to mind? Don't think about it. We want top of mind, just whatever it is. Terrible, rubbish, hate it, whatever you like. Just put any of the first three thoughts, and then we'll move on. And you can see in a word cloud, you'll start to see some of the things. It's quite cool, this. Good, Art. You were right. It is quite cool. This is great. And we're going to compare this at the end again. So let's just see what we've got here. I can look at it here. This is cool. It's quite good, isn't it? Okay, that's interesting. So, okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to study it in the break, but it's quite a mix of things, as we can see. Okay, good. Well, thank you for doing that. Right, if you remember, for those of you who were here, for those of you who weren't, last year we started in 1928. And the reason we did that was, it was the year before the Wall Street crash. There were no rules around financial accounting. People didn't know how to compare one company with another. Your costs were different to your costs, your revenues. There was no standard way of doing it. It was a mess. And it's now regarded as one of the causes of the crash. Okay? The state of ESG, sustainable business reporting, is pretty much the same at the moment, right? The guardrails are just being put into place, and we talked about that. This year, I would like to start in 1776, Art, if we could, with our friend Adam Smith, who's the godfather of all this economic stuff. And he basically said there were three factors of production, or wealth creation, if you like. Okay? They were capital, land, and labor. And if you think about it, all we've really done for the last 100 years is focus on the money. Okay? We know the others are crucial ingredients, but we haven't really bothered accounting for them very much. Everybody starts off in their annual report, our staff are our most important asset, and then we forget about them, basically, right? So really, in my simple way, honestly, let's forget all this stuff. There's a lot of political noise this year above all. 50%, over 50% of the world's population are voting in over 40 countries. That's amazing. That's never happened in history. A lot of people are trying to take advantage of this woke sustainability stuff. There will be a lot of noise, okay? Truthfully, the regulations, the accounting standards, Corey's going to tell us about this, are being put in place underneath. There is a regulatory infrastructure being put in place, which most of us know, okay? But there will be noise. And ignore the noise. All, in my opinion, we should try and remember is that we're going to try and account for everything, for all three pieces, the capital, the land in the shape of the environment, but also biodiversity, okay, which we're losing at a huge rate, and labor, both, if we think of labor, think of people, our staff, and our guests. Okay, and really, that's all we're saying. Let's collect data, make decisions on all three factors of production, and let's not be obsessed with just the one. Okay, it's kind of that simple, really. Okay, does anyone disagree with that, by the way? Does that make sense? Cool. Okay, We all hear about a transition, which is true, and it's a phrase, the just transition, which essentially means transitioning to a low carbon or ideally a zero carbon economy. But we have to do it in a socially equitable way. Otherwise, the distribution of wealth and all kinds of opportunities and everything goes wrong, as we know. That's true. We do need to make that transition. To do that, though, there's a much bigger transition that has to happen, and that's why we called today a symposium. And it's really in people's minds. It's in our mindsets. The technology is either there, maybe it's not at scale yet, but it exists, or it will exist in time. Okay? The biggest problem we've got is up here, in each of us, every one of us, individually and in our companies. Okay? So the biggest transition we need to make is in people's minds. So that's why we were thrilled when Uffi and Peter and the team did this kind of, essentially it was a pitch amongst leading universities around the world. And luckily we won, and we designed the executive education course. And the idea there was really to understand that caring, frankly,